Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This past weekend I managed to place 11th out of 265 in the online Victory Road tournament. You guys can see the team at the bottom of your screen right there. I'll do something fancy in post editing to make it a little more obvious. However, I did use Kyogre Calyrex-S, and honestly, the concept of the team was very good. Today we're going to be breaking down the team itself, going to be releasing the paste, and probably a rental code as well. So I know some of you are just here for that. Feel free, they're in the description right now. Y'all are more than free to leave, but I do encourage you to listen to my thoughts on the team and the breakdown because I think there's a lot of changes I would make going forward. What they are yet, I'm not necessarily sure, but today we're going to explore that. Going to take a look at the team itself, at the concept of the team, and break it down for you guys. So jumping right into things, I figured we'd kick things off with the EVs and the spreads themselves. Makes sense to start with the Kyogre, makes sense to start with the two restricteds. And I know a lot of you might be looking at this and being like, hey, this doesn't look that new, this doesn't look that original. And the answer, because it's not. It's really nothing fancy. It's 5 out of the 6 that I was using in Regulation G with that Kyogre Roaring Moon core. Slap the Cali Shadow on over the Amoonguss. Obviously some spread changes to keep update with the metagame. However, like I said, it's really nothing fancy or nothing new. However, I think the team plays a little bit differently than the Regulation G variant, because obviously, as you can see right away, I do not have Calm Mind on this Kyogre. I just felt that Water Spout was so important. And getting extra damage off, especially in a metagame where it's so fast-paced right now, I didn't see the opportunity for Calm Mind to really become a thing. So I went with Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Ice Beam, Protect. Still stuck with the Terra Grass. I definitely think it's one of the best Terras on Kyogre, outside of like a Terra Water for crazy amounts of damage. Rocking that Mystic Water for a little bit of those boosts there. Lefties was like cool. I did originally play this team in a smaller tournament on a Thursday night, got top 4 there. I had the leftovers variant on the Kyogre. It was like, you know what, with grass and lefties, I might take some chip, but I'll still eventually go back into Water Spout range. That's a pretty cool concept as well. That was fun, but Mystic Water just felt a little bit more consistent, a little bit more up to pace with the rest of the metagame. So I ended up going Mystic Water for this past weekend's tournament. And you guys can see the spread here. It's really nothing new. 140 HP because 132 right here is the 192, which is the grass bump. So I get the most optimal amount from grass. I like being an odd number. I don't know why, so I just bumped it up to 143. It made the most sense. After that, I bumped my special attack to 156. It's sitting at the second bump because it just once again just makes sense. A lot of these spreads are very simple. They're going to hit 1 or 2 benchmarks. And especially at the beginning of the format, that's how you're going to see these play out, because you're not really basing this off of like so many other teams. You gotta hit your benchmarks and you go from there. Dumped into defense, dumped into SPDF, and honestly, it's 140 speed, hits 128. You guys can probably tell just by looking at this, breaking through Raging Bolt is going to be a huge issue for this team. It's something I'm going to talk about later on. But I figured maybe if I was a little bit faster than it, or guaranteed to be faster than the max speed modest ones, there's a chance I could maybe get an Ice Beam off first and do big damage that way. Like a combination of like knockoff Ice Beam normally gets the kills on the not very bulky ones. If they're bulky, less likely. But overall, it was nice outpacing them and knowing that I was outpacing those guys moving forward into the set. Other than that, basic Kyogre guys, absolutely nothing crazy. Cali Shadow. This one started as a joke. I'm going to be honest. So I've always liked the concept of Kyogre Cali Shadow, because Cali Shadow really just does not like instant. That's one of the main dark types that's really difficult for Cali Shadow to break, and having a Kyogre just naturally takes care of that, no problem, right? Obviously, there's other dark types as well, and other issues for Calyrex. However, that Incineroar, in my opinion, is the main one, because not only does Incineroar not care about you, it also can cycle down the rest of the team. Whereas once you have a Kyogre beside this Cali Shadow, you now have 2 massive threats that are just putting out lots of damage whenever you want them to. And then also, now I have funny Encore Disable. And my friend suggested this to me. Shout outs to Nick. And he was like, what if you did Encore Disable? And I'm like, I don't hate it. It's kind of funny. Let's see if it actually ends up working. And sure enough, this set might be one of the best Calyrex Shadow sets I have tested in Regulation I. Like, straight up. No lie. It is absolutely insane the amount of winning positions you can put yourself into just by having these 2 moves. It's like literally a Screamtail, but if Screamtail actually had a move that did damage, right? Like, Screamtail used to have Dazzling Gleam, and that didn't do too much, and it would be Encore Disable stuff, and it would get annoying, right? But it would never really do damage. Calyrex Shadow, on the other hand, it has Encore Disable stuff now, being very annoying, and then if I just want to launch my massive damage, I'm going to go ahead and go and click that button. It is very, very funny. Puts on a lot of locks into positions where it's like, oh, you want to Sucker Punch my Cali Shadow? Go ahead. I'm just gonna click Encore Disable next turn, and you're gonna die, right? And you're done. You're gonna get Encored. You're gonna get cooked that way, right? There's a lot of concepts that you can go for here. I Encored a lot of Tailwinds. I Encore Disabled a lot of Wide Guards, right? It just made sense. I couldn't really make the decision between Encore or Disable, so why not both? Very, very cool set. I did miss having the single target move here, especially on the Kyogre Calyrex Shadow, because I'm pretty sure your answer or your question is going to be, how did this guy beat Wide Guard? Very, very carefully is the answer to how I beat Wide Guard. It was very annoying. I'm going to be honest. It is something I will change with this team moving forward if I do decide to keep running it. However, it's just one of those ones where, you know, if they click Wide Guard, they're not attacking with that piece. So you can kind of take advantage of the fact that, oh, I can just like Encore them, and I know for sure they're not attacking anymore. Oh, I can disable it. They don't have to Wide Guard net this time, and then boom, I can start spamming Water Spout. I can start clicking Astral Barrage again. There's a lot of opportunities for you to shut it down, but it definitely does come down to like some skill-based position play, and it's a little bit, definitely not that simple. It's not as simple. This team is not as simple as going, haha, Tailwind Water Spout or Tailwind Astral Barrage. It's definitely a little bit of a slower paced team to get into those right positions, but when you do, it feels very, very good. Not a lot to say about the EV spread, guys. Once again, I refuse to not go max speed in this format. There's too many Cali Shadows right now that you absolutely need to speed tie, so 100% stuck with that. 44-124 survives Terra Water Surging Strikes from a non-boosted Urshifu, and that was very, very key for me. If I was going to sit here and click the Disable Encore button, I really wanted to be surviving things that outside of my sash as well. This was not my offensive piece. However, having a sash felt necessary versus, you know, the mirror. If I did lose the speed tie, well, if nothing else, I had a sash, I survived, and then I can maybe get my Encore, maybe get my Disable off, do stuff like that. And also versus like Scarf stuff, like Scarf TU, oh, it's going to click Heat Wave. Well, because they don't want to call my Terra. Right? If I Terra Dark, they click Heat Wave, take about 50, 60, and then I just disable them, and all of a sudden they're a useless piece, right? So you can do that a lot with the Scarf Mons. It was very, very funny versus a lot of the Miraidon stuff, where I could play the games where it's, okay, well, I have Rillaboom Cali Shadow now. They got Miraidon. I'm just gonna protect U-turn, and then next turn I'm just gonna disable their Specs Miraidon, and it can't do anything. Right? I could also lose positioning at times versus Miraidon stuff, and it felt very good where I was like, oh, it's fine. I'm still the faster piece. Disabled. You can't move anymore. Sorry. It was very, very good. Got me out of a lot of interesting scenarios where I really wouldn't have expected to get out of. Like there was, I 1v2'd a Zamazenta, like a burned Zamazenta, and like an Amoonguss with this Calyrex Shadow in a tournament this week, and I was like, I'm not supposed to be able to do this, you know, like this is supposed to be from their end like a Wide Guard Spore, but they would Wide Guard because their Amoonguss was not gonna appreciate the Astral Barrage, but then they couldn't get the Spore off because I protected, then I disabled, then I Encored them. The Amoonguss was struggling. I then Encore disabled the Zamazenta, and I got out of that way, right? So it's a lot of get out of jail cards. It's very difficult to get into a position where this works. And there were a lot of games where, you know, I was like, oh, I can play the Encore Disable endgame, but I lost too many pieces, and then Calyrex couldn't really 1v3. So definitely keep an eye on that. But overall, the concept of the core has felt very, very strong to me. And I really would like to look at this farther, but there's so many things I would want to change moving forward with this team that if I am going to bring it to a regional, it's definitely going to be modified a huge amount. Really quickly over the other pieces, guys, they're super, super standard. Incineroar, Terra Bug, Knockoff Wiz Parting Shot Fake Out. Wow. Who would have thought something like this would be normal? I still like the heavily defensive one on this team, especially for like the Choice Scarf Surging Strikes. This basically allows me to Terra Bug versus like the Surging Strikes into rain and just be able to survive that and not lose my Incineroar instantly. Feels pretty good. Other than that, super, super standard set. You could probably make a case for maybe going a little bit more Spadef. But once again, that physical defense felt fine. It's just the Incineroar I've kind of been using for a while now, so felt pretty good there. Rillaboom, once again, who would have thought that Assault Vest Terrifier Rillaboom with its normal moveset and pretty much a normal EV spread make it's up for, right? Like, who would have thought it's good, right? Who would have thought? Nothing crazy here, guys. Once again, similar to that Kyogre, that 192 here is that bump, or is that grassy terrain number, but I like being odd, just for the sake of it. So 140 is what I went with there. 116 for the jump in the attack stat. 4 in defense because I didn't need it. 92 hits 102 here, which actually gets a little bit nicer numbers on some of the assault vest calcs and some of the special attacks. In the game, I don't remember exactly which, but I know for sure it definitely picks up a little bit of nicer calcs moving forward there. And then I just kind of hit 125 speed. Like, I didn't really want to be slower than a random max speed Incineroar. I didn't really want to be slower than like a random Adamant Serena, right? Like, just things like that I still wanted to outspeed. You could easily drop this down, be a lot bulkier, but I just didn't see the need for that. Like, I really liked having a little bit of a quick paced fake out as well. You could maybe bring this up to 127, 128-ish, similar to where the Kyogre is. Maybe you go 129, and then it's like, oh, if your Rillaboom gets the grassy terrain up first, you know your Kyogre's going to outspeed. Like, having, like, speed tiers where they're very close together, like, literally one number off, is a very good way, especially when these Pokemon are proccing abilities, to help know your speed tiers without necessarily needing to figure out that interaction, right? Like, if, let's just say my Rillaboom was 129, and then my Rillaboom went first with the grassy terrain on the lead, and I have my Kyogre in the late game. Well, I know since my Kyogre is at 128, it's very likely either worst case scenario is speed tie or my Kyogre is just faster. So I can use stuff like that to extrapolate data where normally you wouldn't be able to. So that is definitely a change I would consider moving forward, maybe making these guys a little closer. However, this was perfectly fine. It worked pretty well this weekend. Nothing really to complain about Rillaboom there. Urshifu, hey guys, look, it's a Choice Scarf Rillaboom. Urshifu, yeah, whoopee. Nothing funny here, guys. It's literally Surgic Strikes, Close Combat, U-Turn, and I click Jet, I don't know, maybe once or twice all weekend. It's not a move that you click here. Could be maybe experimental there, but every time I feel like I drop Aqua Jet, I'm always in a position where it's like, wow, I really wish I had like an Aqua Jet here, because it does open up end games, you know, where like you chip things down and then all of a sudden you can get big damage off. Or, you know, last turn of Tailwind from them and they have like a 2 HP Pokemon, you can just Aqua Jet it, right? And they can't protect it and keep it alive. It feels like a very good move to have still. It doesn't really get clicked too much in theory, but overall it's a pretty good move. I love Terra Ghost on Urshifu, especially on the Kyogre teams. You can make a case for Terra Water. Terra Water, Terra Stellar, both are very solid. I like Ghost simply because my team likes to fake out cycle, and a lot of the times when you try to fake out cycle, your opponent will try to fake out cycle. And getting out of the fake out cycle is always super, super nice. I didn't need the boost from the Terra Water or the Terra Stellar for Resurgent Strikes, because a lot more often than not, I'd be in that rain. So I didn't really need that boost there. So Terra Ghost felt perfectly fine to me. Get out some of the cycles. It's nothing new, guys. It's an Urshifu. The spread, guys, just go 252, 252. It like doesn't matter. The only thing that like is kind of interesting is I think you get some better rolls in rain if you go up to 252 here. I haven't really missed the KO, so I like kind of a little bit of bulky here, but just go 252, 252, 4, guys. It's not like a necessity here. There's nothing crazy going on at this point. Roaring Moon, on the other hand, once again, absolutely nothing new. We've seen this concept in Regulation G. Knock off Acrobatics, Tailwind, Protect. And, you know, you just get to do Roaring Moon things. You got a little bit of bulk. 84 is for the no bulk Urshifus, especially those Choice Scarf ones that you're able to outpace, Terra Flying, and take out. Very, very helpful, especially when you're paired next to a Cali Shadow in rain. The Scarf Urshifus tend to be in rain versus you, and that's a little bit more spooky for your Cali Shadow, because despite being able to live the Terra Water ones, you cannot live the rain boosted ones. So, well, you technically could. I think it's like a 70% roll to kill you or something, but like you technically could survive it. But it's nice to have a little bit more pressure into those guys. Getting quick Tailwinds up is very, very nice as well. And then obviously just Protect. Nothing new there. 84, we were talking about that. 204 speed, that's new this format. Back into, you used to see Roaring Moon sit around the, the 175-ish to the 179 spot, right? But with so many Tornadus going around in the metagame, I wanted to outpace that, which put me at 180. And then being at 180, I'm like, oh, I'm speed tying Zamazenta. And normally I wouldn't really be bringing Roaring Moon to a Zamazenta comp. However, in a dual restricted format, I can actually feasibly bring Roaring Moon to the Cali Shadow Zamazenta matchup, where it's a feasible enough bring that I should be considering that speed tier. So I jumped up to 181. I am now outpacing the max speed Zamazenta. So you at least get to, move before it, worst case scenario. I don't think it's really doing anything to the Zamazenta. However, it does do a very good chunk of work to some of the rest of the team sometimes. Like if it's got the Rillaboom and the Calyrex and they go that mode, well then my Roaring Moon actually is very good in that matchup. I played a team this weekend and they ended up dropping Zamazenta game 3 as I brought Roaring Moon. So I had a Roaring Moon versus a Cali Shadow, a Rillaboom, an Ogerpon Fire, and an Incin. And Roaring Moon was very good there, but like I wouldn't have been able to even think about bringing it had I been a slower piece than Zamazenta. The only reason I was okay for bringing it and like I made the yeah, this is fine in a game 3, I can risk it, is because for worst case scenario, I was faster than the Zamazenta, right? So it's like I don't want to be in front of it, but it's definitely something to consider moving forward. Overall, the team feels very, very good. It felt very, very fluent all weekend, and that's what I like out of teams, right? Like you're going to see a lot of teams this format, and it's like you really kind of need to get the lead right. It's very, very difficult to kind of switch and regain positioning. This is that type of team that felt good to me. I didn't really lose positioning, and if I did, I could still maybe, cycle out of it. I had the double fake out, I had the Calyrex with Encore Disable, I had Parting Shot, I had U-Turn, I had Tailwind. There was a lot of board control that I could go for that really just put me in the driver's seat a lot of the times. Like in a lot of the games, I felt like I wasn't winning by a lot, but I was in a commanding position. Like I would win with like just at the very end with like a late game 2 HP Calyrex versus a 3 HP Incin, and I'd just close it off with an Astral Barrage, right? But this is the type of team that's going to allow you to cycle into those positions. So similar to that Regulation G Kyogre team with the Calm Mind Kyogre, where you'd get to those positions and you didn't matter how little HP you had, if you kept the piece alive for the right reasons, it was probably going to work for you in the long run, right? The grass really helps the longevity of the Calyrex as well as the Kyogre. And overall, really, really quickly, the CSR Zamazenta matchup, guys, is a little bit shaky. I would love to patch that up moving forward. That's definitely something I want to consider, because my issue isn't taking the hits. I have no issue cycling around a CSR Zama, right? I will do that all day. That's very simple for me. I got Fake Out, I got Scarfurge, I've got the Roaring Moon if I want that mode. I have the Calyrex Shadow with Encore Disable. I have Kyogre for big damage if they let me into that position, right? My issue is actually getting into the positions where these Pokemon are getting the damages that they need, right? Especially now you have the ones with the Tailwind Zamazentas, right? So it's a little spooky, right? Because like Urshifu normally destroys that concept, right? You're able to get Urshifu in under this without speed control because they don't generally have speed control. Urshifu comes in, Surging Strike cleans up the Cali Shadow, Surging Strikes cleans up the Incin, Surging Strikes hits the Zamazenta pretty hard, or you're forcing a Terra Dragon, and force the Terra Dragon, you can Ice Beam it later. The issue is when they have speed control, or a Terra or a Rocky Helmet Amoonguss, it is very difficult to leverage the pieces that you're trying to leverage into that composition. So the CSR Zamazenta themselves, in that case, aren't the problem. The problem is actually doing enough damage to them before their supporting cast actually breaks through you first. And that's kind of the issue here, right? Because like, oh, Zamazenta, you're going to force it to Wide Guard because you have your Cali Shadow. Cool, it's not doing anything. But breaking through the rest of the team because your two heaviest hitters are both spread damages was very, very difficult. Especially when, you had something like a Raging Bolt beside it. I lost round, I believe it was 10, to CSR Zamazenta Raging Bolt, and it felt nearly impossible to break. It felt like one matchup that like I legitimately, no matter what I did, could not get out of it. Like I may have had a couple chances if I played the Encore Disable endgame a little bit differently, but I think at that point all it was doing was getting me out of a bad position and putting me in a decent one, but I still wasn't like winning me games hands down, right? It was like cool to have the Encore Disable at times, but it also kind of felt like a trap. But overall, CSR Zamazenta, it was okay. It wasn't a great matchup, wasn't a terrible matchup. I beat a fair share of them, but it was definitely like you really needed to think on that one. If you guys are looking for games and all that, the VODs from this weekend, I did stream the tournament live on Twitch. So the VODs are up on my Twitch channel if you're looking at anything in specific. I'm not going to get too deep into my tournament run, but I played CSR Zamazenta like 3 times in the first 6 rounds. So definitely feel free to take a look at that if you are interested in how I kind of approached that matchup. And then I also played another team that's pretty common is the Koraidon Lunala. I played 3 times as well, and then I played one Koraidon Cali Shadow. So it's interesting. That matchup feels bad. Like, it feels like I should be losing that matchup. However, there's also possibilities for you to win that matchup. The Roaring Moon is very, very key in the Koraidon matchup because you're able to utilize Roaring Moon as kind of that offensive piece and you turn your Kyogre into the secondary option that's just going to set the weather for you and win the weather control as you leverage like Rillaboom, Roaring Moon, Kyogre, and then you late game Calyrex Shadow them after some of the pieces have been gone. And that's kind of the way I've been pushing my way through that. You could, in theory, drop Calyrex Shadow, maybe bring Incin. Very, very viable option there. As well, you could maybe bench like the Rillaboom and go Incin as well. Tons of options there. You have possibilities to outplay, but I don't think the concept of that matchup is great. Especially, once again, the Raging Bolt into Sun becomes too much. Raging Bolt out of Sun is like workable, but Raging Bolt in Sun is a huge issue. This entire concept does not appreciate Raging Bolt, and that's definitely something I would want to change moving forward. I don't even know what I'd do, though, because, you know, Urshifu is great. I don't bring it all that much. It kind of breaks through the cores that I want. Scarf Lando is interesting. What I find with Urshifu is the moment you take it off your team, it just appreciates the range so well. It appreciates being beside, you know, other big offensive pieces. Like, I have Scarf Urshifu. I'm doing 90% to something, and then Callie's going to get the boost later on, right? It's a very good piece for this team. And I think people underappreciate how much it does at going through protects, right? It's one of those pieces like, oh, it's not doing a lot, but when it does come onto field, it's good, it's decent, it's a good piece. And then you're like, oh, let me try dropping it. And then you drop it, and it's like, wow, I really wish I could hit through protect right now. It's just something you kind of like, once you start using Urshifu more and more, you forget how oppressive it is to be able to attack through a protect. Right, so replacing Urshifu, I don't know if I'd necessarily do. However, getting through Raging Bolt has not been fun. Has not been a fun endeavor for this team. But anyways, that was kind of a little side tangent there. But Lunala Koraidon's like, it's a pretty interesting matchup. You do have to win the Weather War. I didn't hate piloting it. I did complain every single time I pulled it. I was like, I don't want to play this right now. But I was getting calls right, and I was winning games. So that's probably the way that matchup's going to have to go, right? Once again, Terraflying Roaring Moon with weather control is very, very strong in that matchup if you can leverage it right. That's where I would go. Miraidon issues, I've had no issues playing against Miraidon with this team. I frankly don't care what the partner is. There's some issues where it's maybe like a wide guard Lunala gets a little bit annoying, but even then I can Encore Disable that, and I have Encore Disable and Rillaboom. They never get the leverage that they need to get out of that Encore Disable. I can intimidate the Iron Hands, the Ogre Pawns if they're still running those variants. And then if they have like the Ice Rider variants, I just leverage Kyogre, right? It's very... The lines in that matchup aren't necessarily simple, but the concept of what you need to do is simple in that matchup, I think. And it's just control the board state, whether or not you're going Rilla Kyogre on lead or Rilla Shadow Rider on lead, and you're just going to try to control the board state and cycle your pieces as you see fit. It's a very simple concept. I don't hate that matchup. Now, obviously, anytime you're going up against Miraidon, it could just all of a sudden click that 90 million damage move, and you probably lose some pieces. So it's not like the simplest matchup. But it felt very fine to me in all of my prep when I was playing against Miraidon stuff. I wouldn't really worry too much about that. Swordfish wasn't really a problem. Like, I would get to go Roaring Moon Kyogre. You kind of have to make a call or two somewhere there, because normally they're going to lead Tailwind, you're going to lead Tailwind. If they lead Tailwind Ogre, you probably outpace that endgame anyways, right? You're just going to get your Tailwind matched and then click either Origin Pulse or Water Spout, depending on if your Ogre was faster or not. If they lead Tailwind plus Zacian, it's a little bit more spooky, because the question is going to be, are they going to play rough your Kyogre, or are they going to play rough and kill the Roaring Moon before you're able to match Tailwind? However, what you do there is I just like to send both damage. I just like to send it. And if they kill the Roaring Moon and I don't get Tailwind, I'm getting a Origin Pulse or a Water Spell, whichever one I'm in the mood to click. Generally, if they're Terra Fairy, I like clicking Water Spout, because they'll make the assumption that I'll protect my Kyogre, since like a Terra Fairy +1 play rough would kill. So I'd like going Water Spout. If they hit the Roaring Moon, then I get the full power Water Spout. If they're not Tear Fairy, even if they do attack the Kyogre, they might not get the KO. So I like going Origin Pulse there, because at least then I'm alive. I get big damage off. I've matched the Tailwinds, and I can go from there. Concept there was pretty straightforward there. Nothing too crazy. Literally match Tailwind, get your Kyogre doing things. Late game Calyrex, and then pick one of the 3 that you want. And I think the key takeaway from this, guys, is literally use Instant Rillaboom to support your 2 restricteds. And I know it's a boring concept. I don't know how I've yapped for 25 minutes about this right now. But yeah, it's a very interesting team. I was going to call it a simple team, but I don't really think it's that simple. But there's more to it than it being simple, because you have the Encore Disable. You can do a lot with this concept. And then the cycle that you put, just the Instant, the Rillaboom, the Calyrex Shadow, the Kyogre, and just that the cycle around that you get with these pieces is so strong. And I think it really just goes to show you that the format with 2 restricteds, if you can support them well, regardless of what your support pieces are going to be it's going to be, if nothing else, a decent concept. Overall, kind of sad that I lost that top 16. It was a really good set. Just, you know, would have been nice to tidy that up a little bit, but it was Koraidon Lunala that eliminated me. So once again, it just got to get those reads right in that game. I didn't get my reads right. It's an interesting matchup. I'm trying to think if there's any other big matchups that I haven't really touched upon, but the big one was CSR Zamazenta, and like I said, it's pretty neutral. In terms of modifying, definitely got to look into the Raging Bolt matchup, which I've probably hinted on way too many times already. I think you also have to look into some more of the immediate Tailwind stuff. Like, you get Tailwind beside a lot more than you normally would in the past, and that kind of gets a little bit scary. Like, in the past, you know, you'd see Tailwind Kyogre, you'd see, like, Tailwind Miraidon, right? So, like, you don't see that. You see a lot more beside now Cali's Shadow, and that gets a little bit more difficult for your Roaring Moon to leverage there, right? Because if you get chipped, all of a sudden they get late game Tailwind, it's kind of in trouble, right? You see a lot of Tailwind Koraidon as well. That's a little spooky for the Roaring Moon. A lot of things that are a little bit shaky here. A lot of things that I really haven't, like, fine-tuned yet. But like I said, a lot of this team was just like, hey, Ryan, this is literally what you were running in Regulation G, but with Calyrex. Try it. Okay, sure, it was kind of fun. And then the joke set here with Encore Disable, that might actually be real. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much for you guys. Hopefully you guys did hear kind of my thoughts. I would have prepared. I don't like preparing, like, strict, like, speeches when I talk about my team reports, because I feel like my genuine thoughts as I'm going through the team and kind of what just comes to mind is very good. I hope I touched upon everything. I believe I touched upon everything. And hopefully just my natural thought process kind of clicks with you guys a little bit better than, like, the heavily scripted things. But overall, that's pretty much just going to do it for us. With that, thank you all so much for watching. If you guys do enjoy this type of content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help with the channel. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here, and I will catch you all in a future video.